What's up, everybody out there in YouTube land? Wrath2501 here. Alright, guys, so I thought he was done with this, but he's not. Alright, so we got another episode of Escape from BackCells Prison, and this is by Pop Cross Studios. Alright, so yeah, this is a really long one. So I'm just gonna go burn through this whole freaking thing, because I heard this was the this was supposed to be the final chapter. Oof, man, that was intense. Alright, so let's go.
Escape from BackCells Prison Saga started off as a fun, simple idea to take entities out of the backrooms and turn them into supervillains, but pretty quickly evolved into one of the most fleshed out, original, or at least semi-original, stories on this channel. My eagerness to continue it has been heavily fueled by all the encouraging comments I've gotten from those of you that have become invested in the story, so thank you so much for all of those. But today we have reached the final chapter, and I heavily encourage if you haven't at least seen episode 4 in the series,
says it's the final chapter.
Watch that first, I'll link it in the cards. But for everyone that's already caught up, get ready for an exciting final chapter with a bit of a tonal shift. Because the first 4 episodes were narrated by the kid, aka Jake Tajin, who had just gotten his superpowers, didn't know anything about the craziness out there in the multiverse when he got trapped in BackCells prison. Whereas this episode is narrated by Sterling and Geel, a much more seasoned superhero, who has a different, more casual perspective on the weirdness he's about to face in today's adventure. But let's get into it, shall we?
Okay.
Let's hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. Sterling's Journal, Entry 1. Got the idea to start journaling from a new friend of mine, and this is gonna be one wild first entry. I could fill this whole book with the insanity that happened these past couple weeks, which made it exactly my kind of week because I've learned to love some good old multiverse insanity. Funny to think that just 2 years ago I spent my time wallowing in self-pity, and now I'm doing things like fighting dragons in other dimensions with a group of awesome and wacky super friends. Anyway, about 2 weeks ago I walked into the Sharp Tank, which used to be called the Agency of Supernatural Protection, but my friends and I unironically changed the name since our friend Benny Sharp decided our team name was the Sharp Gang. Benny himself was right in the entryway as I came in, talking to our new friend Vasilia and some guy I didn't recognize. I probably should have stopped to say hi, especially because I owed Vasilia a big thanks for using some of her magic to help me unlock a new super move I've been workshopping, called the Silver Nova. But I was kinda stuck in my thoughts as usual. I was replaying stuff in my head from our last few missions, trying to mentally log all the insane stuff that had happened in my life, and reminiscing about how, when I was younger and less experienced, all that same kind of stuff might have freaked me right out. But now I just found myself wanting things to be even more wild and unexpected. Little did I know I was about to step into one of the most wild and unexpected adventures I'd seen yet.
Yeah, you say shit like that, and the
I was
universe
headed
is
to my
gonna go
room
like,
when I saw that the building's vault door was open. We didn't keep a ton of stuff in there, but what we did was very important to keep safe. 3 of the 4 pieces of the multiversal orb. A device that, honestly, I don't know what all it can actually do, but even just one shard managed to cause a near world-ending kaiju onslaught on my friend Heath's world, so not exactly a fun little toy you want anyone messing around with.
I'm gonna touch you.
I walked inside the vault and expected to find nothing, but I quickly saw that one of the 3 shards was gone, and there was a portal open leading into a musty yellow office building sort of place with no windows. Through it, I could hear a conversation, and one of the voices sounded like Astra, my ex, who was a part of our group, who I dated back when she was pretending to be Satan's daughter before she faked her own death for a while, and that sentence is currently holding the award for most ridiculous thing in this journal. But we're probably going to break that record very soon.
Probably.
My mind quickly jumped to the idea of Astra betraying us, because she didn't have the best track record with this group, but I knew there had to be a logical explanation. She had been doing a lot to prove herself reformed lately. Just to make sure, though, I tiptoed over to the portal to look in. A couple dozen feet ahead, facing away from me, was Astra, holding one of the orb shards as well as this weird Hessian sack with something in it. She was talking to this guy with gray, flaky skin and pink glowy cuts or something coming from one of his eyes. He also had glowing runes on his forearm, so I knew, like Astra, he was an overseer. But if this was the dimension he oversaw, I wasn't getting a great first impression of his homeworld. Anyway, he did not look at all impressed with whatever Astra was saying. They were a bit too far away for me to hear Astra with her back turned away, so as fast as I could, I darted inside to get a closer look, hiding behind a wall near them. I could have sworn the guy she was talking to had seen me, but he didn't react. "Come on, Dresden," Astra said. "Don't be such a pain. I'm just gonna leave him here and walk away, and you still owe me, let's say, half a favor." "You leave that thing here, and your favor is spent, Astra. Trapping an overseer in my prison is a feat I only accept for a hefty fee." "Yeah, and the orb shard I gave you was worth like 12 hefty fees, and you know it." I was kinda scared there for a sec that she was giving him that shard that she'd brought, but she definitely said gave, like past tense. Astra did at one point have all 4 pieces of the multiversal orb, so I guess she had given one to this Dresden guy in exchange for a favor? What I didn't get was why she'd brought this other piece with her. The shards could open portals to other dimensions, among a bunch of other things, sure, but Astra was an overseer. She could jump between dimensions just using the runes on her forearm. Of course,
yeah, but
now,
not here.
even I could jump dimensions on my own too, because Benny had built everyone in our group these multiverse jumping wristwatches, which I was currently wearing. I didn't get much else out of their conversation. I kept listening until they came to a reluctant agreement that whatever favor this Dresden guy owed Astra was up by him taking that weird Hessian sack she'd brought in with her. I hid farther back behind the wall as Astra walked past again through the portal, still carrying the shard she'd brought. When the portal closed and she was gone, I peeked back around the corner and nearly jumped out of my skin, because that Dresden guy was right there in my face staring at me. My instincts tried to make me get my powers rocking right there and either light up my hands in flames or pop out a couple of liquid metal blades, but instead I tried to play friendly. Whoa, you scared me there, Dresden? Sorry, I may or may not have been eavesdropping. I'm Sterling. I held out my hand to shake, but he didn't take it, and upon hearing my name, a really eerie grin crept across his face.
Oh, that's never a good
Sterling.
sign.
As in Astra's? Sterling and Geel? Well, personally, I wouldn't refer to myself as Astra's, but, you know, if you mean I'm from Astra's dimension, then yeah. His grin widened, and I wanted to ask him to stop that. Kinda wrong on him, like he really didn't smile very often. He shoved the Hessian sack Astra had left into my hands and said, "You just made my day. I appreciate your presence. Enjoy your stay." He tapped the runes on his forearm, and the floor just kinda swallowed him up, and he was gone. Didn't really know what to make of that whole exchange, so I set my watch and got it ready to take me back to my dimension for a quick escape just in case something funky happened, but before pressing it, I opened the sack that Astra had left, and I kid you not, inside was an unconscious gopher in a tuxedo with the sleeves ripped off, and what I thought at the time was a toy squirt gun. It was both hilarious and adorable. I carefully took the gopher and the gun out of the bag and was kinda mumbling to myself about what an adorable little gooby he was, all the while trying to think of why the heck Astra had just used some massive favor to leave a gopher in this place. After a moment, its eyes started to flutter open, so I said, "Hi there, you cute little gooby." And then its eyes shot way open and it hissed at me.
Shit.
It snatched the gun out of my other hand and fired it right into my forehead. Definitely wasn't a squirt gun. Luckily, my instincts took over and metal seeped out of my pores and coated over my head, because the blast hit me so hard that I flew back into a wall. Even with my metal protecting me, it still hurt a lot. Definitely could have been my next concussion. Now scrambling across the musty carpet, the gopher fired a bunch of blasts at me. I made a silver shield over my arm and blocked them all pretty easily, but I figured it was probably time to go. I decided I could just ask Astra what was up with this gopher. I pressed the button on my watch to go home, and nothing. Tried again, and still nothing. The gopher kept firing, and I considered shooting some flames back at it, but it was just too cute to attack. Instead, I lowered my shield and raised both my hands. "I mean you no harm, little guy. We're cool. Not looking for a fight here." It fired a shot right past my head, but I barely flinched and just kept my hands up, trying to show that I was calm and cool. It had the gun aimed right at me, but didn't shoot again, like it was eyeing me up and down, trying to decide what to do. Honestly, in spite of the attack, I still really wanted to cuddle the adorable little thing. We stood in silence for a moment before both of us started to hear something
It would
pretty
beep, but then
unexpected.
you don't boop on
It was like a
scoot.
pulsing thud, but as it got closer and closer, I realized it was music, like something you'd hear at a rave. Soon the music was coming in super clear, and a group of a dozen crab people came around the corner with a 90s-style boombox. They were pretty weird looking, but, you know, I figured they might be able to tell me something about this place we were in. But just as I started to wave over to them, Gooby turned, fired his ray gun, and blasted their boombox to pieces. They looked over at us in shock, which quickly turned to fury. Gooby kept firing at them as they started running at us, but they blocked all the shots with their big crab hands. Gooby then turned and just scurried off, and I decided to just follow suit, on the verge of bursting out laughing at how weird this day had just become.
Dude, you definitely have some mental problems, okay? Look like crab, taste like people.
Gooby fired back past me at the crab folk, and I lit up one hand and meddled up the other, just in case they caught up. But we were managing to pull away.
Rave crabs?
That little gopher was shockingly fast.
This is literally
I
just
almost
a meme,
considered
though.
flying to keep up with him. After a couple minutes of darting through the weird, seemingly endless yellow halls, Gooby actually stopped and finally gave me a second to catch up myself. When I did, I found he was faced with another group of people, and not much less weird looking than the crabs. Two of them were kids between, like, 7 and 15. I don't know, I'm bad at telling kids' ages. The boy was sorta normal looking, but had glowing green, goopy-covered hands, and the girl was like a short
Nasty.
little fish person. The third guy behind them was like 8 feet tall and was some big zombie-looking dude. They were all in scraggy sorta post-apocalypse superhero type suits or something, and they all looked about ready to fight, so I tried to defuse the moment. Smiled back at them, said hi, asked them if they knew that Dresden guy, but they didn't really answer. Just kinda looked at each other, then back at me and Gooby. As the stomping and yelling of the crab people got closer, the kids got this terrified look on their faces, and I started to pick up on how exhausted and freaked out they looked. Guess this place wasn't as much fun for everyone as it was for me. I looked over at the crab people, then back at these new folks and said, right, them. Don't worry about them, I'll handle this. You all, just relax, okay? As casually and coolly as I could, I turned and walked back in the direction of the coming gang. I let my blade retract and my fire dim as I held my hands up and said, "Hey there, look, I'm sorry, my new friend smashed your boombox, but we can work something out, right? I can find you another one or something, or maybe this dimension has currency and I can buy you a new one." They really didn't seem interested in negotiating, though. One got close enough to attack and thrust his open claw forwards. I meddled up the sides of my head just as he clamped around me, and part of his claw cracked off against my head. I'm still open to cooperating here. He then thrust his other claw towards my stomach. I swung my arm and bumped the strike off course, then shoved the crab back. Another swung its claw at my head and I ducked aside, then quickly ran through my thoughts about what I knew about them. These people had blocked Gooby's ray gun with their claws, so their shells are pretty tough. They had some weaker looking segments to them, so I'd avoid shooting at those for now. Wasn't looking to maim anyone here. I threw up my palm and shot a beam of fire at the shoulder of the one that had just swung. It cracked the shell over her shoulder and sent her flying backwards. I winced a bit, but shot was too hard, I better hold back more. A claw slammed against my head and made me spin around. I got a glimpse of the kids, who were still looking terrified and unsure of whether to run or fight. I wanted to ease their minds, so I smiled at them before spinning back around as a claw snatched at my head again. I blocked it, but another shot in and grabbed my leg. It yanked and pulled me to the ground, but I used the momentum to swing my other foot up and kick a metal foot into its head. He flopped back, and from the ground I shot 2 beams of flame at the shoulders of 2 more coming at me. They were knocked back, but no cracked shells this time. I then spun my hands back down and shot a burst of flame that leapt me back right onto my feet. I then decided to try out one of my personal favorite crowd control moves, which my friend Kayla referred to as the Silver Beyblade. I meddled up the back of my arm but left my palm free to shoot a rocket of flame. I stood up on one of my tiptoes, then let loose the flame that spun me around and around like a crab bashing top. My metal arm slammed against anything that came too close. I went for 30 seconds until I stopped feeling any impacts, then slowed to a stop, and definitely felt like I was gonna fall over from dizziness, but forced myself to stay stable, to look as confident and casual as possible for the kids. Half the crabs were on the ground and the others were all standing back, unsure of what to do. I suddenly got an idea. I pulled out my pocket MP3 player, which I know what you're thinking, who still has those when, phones play music, but this thing didn't connect to Wi-Fi, so I could take it to other dimensions and not worry about it trying to connect to an interdimensional signal that scrambles it from incompatibility.
That's
I've
true.
lost a couple of phones that way.
Yeah,
I
you
held
would.
it up, then
That's a
looked
good
over
point.
to the toughest looking crab left. This thing doesn't have much of your kind of music on it, or the stuff you were listening to, but it's something, alright. I pressed play on it and let Crocodile Rock start kicking, then tossed it to the crab lady. A hand popped out from between her claw, and she caught it. It's yours now, just chill out and get some Elton John in you, alright? She eyed the thing, then looked back at me and said, "We prefer Billy Joel." I smirked at her. Got his whole discography on there, you go nuts. She nodded and waved the crabs away. I turned and walked back over to my new potential friends. Well, they seemed nice. Anyway, I'm
Seemed
Sterling.
nice.
Who are you all again? They got into their story, and let me tell you, it's a wild one. I could go through it all, but it's bananas and could fill like an
It'd take a
hour and a
couple of
half
hours.
in its own right. So if you want all the details, just go read Jake's journal or something.
There you
The
go.
boy, Jake, finished off the story with, "So
Nice
now
reference.
we're stuck in here again. The key, or whatever you just called it, the multiversal orb shard, is gone. Maybe back in Fight for Your Life, but we don't know for sure. And we still need to free Kate from Gentleman Bestar's arena, then let her kill Bestar or she won't even leave. I mean, we have no idea how to do any of that, or if it's even possible for us." By the end of the story, I honestly couldn't help but just smile, both from a desire to encourage this group out of their fear, but also because of how much potential I was already seeing in them from the story I'd just heard. So I said, "I think you're not giving yourselves enough credit. If everything you're telling me is true, then you have successfully escaped from the most difficult to escape from place in the multiverse, using powers you've had for what, a few months? You know what I was doing with my powers after a month? I could maybe turn one hand into metal and light up a fire the size of a small match. Heck, I couldn't even fly for the first years I had my powers. You got that down in what, a few weeks? That's nuts, Jake." A smile cracked through his worried expression.
He got potential.
And
then.
you, Anna, you went from phasing yourself to phasing yourself and two other people, and now you're gonna start phasing through walls.
No, I can only phase through people. I mean, maybe I could do more, but I don't know how much I should try because I don't want to get stuck, or maybe I could try phasing through your hamster friend here to see if I can go through animals,
Hamster?
because I don't even know if I can...
She reached towards Gooby, who raised his gun at her. "Whoa, whoa, whoa," I said, putting my palm over the barrel. "Based on everything you've told me, I know you can phase through non-living stuff. Here, swipe your hand through me." She skeptically held her breath to activate her intangibility, then waved a hand through my chest. "See? Exactly," I said. "Yeah, you went through me, but you also phased through my padding and clothing, too. That's not a part of
True.
me, right?"
Good
Her
point.
eyes shot open.
I didn't think
Her-
of that,
her
but I tried
head
going
has
through
to be
walls
in the
before and I
right
can't,
place.
although that was a while ago, so maybe I've improved more since then, but I don't know if I should...
I put a light hand on her shoulder.
Calm
We're gonna
down.
work on it, okay? And we might work a little bit on your
And hey, you
indecisiveness,
phased
too.
out of your clothes.
While we'd been talking,
Jeez.
I'd been putting all the pieces together for a plan that, at the time, I was like 75% sure would work based on everything they'd told me. Jake, Anna, you have literally everything you need to get Kate free and get out of here again, way faster than you did the first time. And if you can't stay in your dimension because your overseer is being a pain, then
Being a
you'll just come to my
bitch.
dimension until we can figure out how to get her to cooperate, alright? Now let's chip her up a bit. I'm stuck in here too, right? But do I look worried? They all shook their heads.
Yeah, but
Even
you also
Gooby,
look
which
insane.
was unexpected. Exactly, because this may seem scary now, but if you two long-term do the whole superhero thing, this'll just end up being like an average Tuesday for you, and you can learn to have fun with stuff like this. But maybe I'm also just not so worried because I'm lucky enough to have run into you two. Now, I'm gonna help you guys with your powers, and we're not just getting out of here, we're gonna have fun doing it, alright? Their faces were slowly shifting from concerned to eager. Then Jake
This
said,
one has a lot of
"What
story
about
in it."
Skinner?" Gesturing back to the giant zombie ex-serial killer who'd been trying to kill them not a day earlier. "Of course," I said. "You keep healing him for now, and when we get out of here, we'll get him whatever help he needs to fully rehabilitate. Besides, he's one of the most important parts of our plan, because, you know, it's not like Gentleman Bestar's just gonna let you two waltz back over to his arena." After that, I explained what I had in mind, and we got down to work on honing their powers. All the while, I wondered how long it would take for my friends to realize I was missing.
Yeah, probably a while. Where'd he go? Nah. Okay.
We spent 2
Crab
weeks
people.
working on Jake and Anna's powers, as well as honing our plan, getting a bit more help, then, of course, getting to the level of Bestar's fighting arena. I'd honestly expected my friends to come and find me by then, but I guess even if they had noticed that I was gone and weren't assuming I was off on some solo mission, they'd have no idea where to start looking for me. It didn't matter though, my confidence in our plan had gone from 75% to a solid 92.6. Of course, we had a
Really?
backup plan just in case that I
Oddly
called
specific.
the Irish goodbye. Anna's powers were a little bit more unpredictable than I'd hoped, but we'd come up with a way that helped her do what we needed her to do. Turned out she could phase through solid objects if there was something biological pressed up against them. When the plan was finally underway, I marched towards the cheering crowd at Bestar's arena. A few dozen manic-looking supervillains were surrounding a dome cage, looking down on a fight between some kind of dog man and one of the members of the Rave Crab gang. I tried to blend in as I pushed through the crowd, scanning the environment, fitting the plan into the actual setting that I'd just been imagining for the last week. I got close to the guy who I was pretty sure was Bestar, but a bulky guard stepped between us and looked down at me angrily.
No talking to the boss while the show is on, pal. Beat it.
To be honest, I was kinda excited to get into my pretend villain character. I smirked at him and said, "You beat it, Cupcake. The grown-ups here need to have a chat." His face went beet red and he swung a massive fist for my forehead. I felt bad for him as I did this, but I meddled up my head and felt his knuckles crack against me. I grabbed his collar and shoved myself down under his waist and hurled him over my back, slamming him to the ground behind me. The crowd laughed and cheered at the sight as I stepped casually past him towards Bestar. "You the guy I talked to about getting into the ring?" He looked me up and down eagerly. "I am indeed. We can put you in next if you'd like. Play the winner, as it were." The crowd roared up, and I looked down just in time to see the hound guy biting right through the neck of the crab woman. It was an awful sight to see and was gonna make our new friends pretty mad, but I made sure not to react and break character. I turned back and said, "Hey, I'll go next, but I don't want to fight your little pup. I hear you've got a fighter who's never been beaten. I'm here to challenge Unkillable Kate." He just laughed at me. "A very foolish decision for a first-timer, but if you insist." He pulled a lever behind me, and unexpectedly, the floor below me opened. I slid down through a tube right into the arena. The hound was about ready to come at me, but then he glanced up at Bestar and turned to go back into his own cage. Around me in the arena were a bunch of other locked-up people, but quickly my eyes found the only pink-haired girl in the lot, who hadn't even looked up from her cage as it started to creak open. "Well, BackCells Prison, it seems we have a new contender, who wants to try his might against our longtime champion, the Unkillable Kate. We won't place bets on who will win, but perhaps on how long he'll last, The crowd laughed and cheered as Kate walked out before me. From what Jake and Anna had said about her, Kate had no superpowers, so all I had to do was stay on defense till phase 2 of the plan could come through. I tried to stay in character. "So, you're unkillable, huh? We gonna test that out or what?" She looked me up and down, expressionless. To be honest, my heart kinda fluttered a bit as her eyes met mine. She
Really,
was
dude?
gorgeous.
You're doing this
in
now?
a crazy, I might kill you sort of way. She said, "You don't look like a killer to me." Before I could make some snarky retort, Kate exploded forward and swung a fist for my head. I would have ducked if I'd had time to process, but instead, on instinct, my forehead just went metal. I heard the crunch of her bones and instantly felt awful, but I couldn't show it. Yeah, that's not gonna work on me." But she just punched again, hitting metal again,
geez.
and already I could see blood seeping from her knuckles, but she just
Jeez.
kept going. I tried to dodge her next hits, but all of them hit me, and all of them were hitting metal. She didn't seem to care at all. She was like a machine. I didn't know what to do, but her hands were gonna be paste if we kept going like this. I forced my metal to stop coating over me, but as soon as I did, a fist hammered right into the side of my head so hard that I instantly doubted Kate lacked superpowers. I was slammed to the ground and dizzy instantly. A boot flew right for my head next, and I blasted fire from my hands to shoot me across the floor. She still hit me right in the knee, and it seriously hurt, but at least it wasn't my head again. I flung myself to my feet across the arena and could already barely stand on that leg. I was in trouble, for multiple reasons. I hadn't intended on using my fire powers because I didn't want people to wonder why I was avoiding just roasting her from afar. But luckily, the crowd soon after got a distraction, as Skinner marched onto the floor above, carrying an unconscious Jake and Anna in each hand. There was a commotion above that briefly caught Kate's attention, and her blank expression turned to horror.
Anna? Skinner, you mother...
I saw my shot and flew across the arena, planning to tackle her as lightly as I could, but she caught me by the neck and used my momentum to swing me around and slam me into the ground. She got a knee onto my chest and an elbow into my throat. As quietly as I could, with the crowd distracted above, I said,
Anna and Jake are fine. We're gonna get you out of here.
Kate eased up ever so slightly and scanned my face. There was a split second of hesitation, then she punched me in the head. It still hurt, but had way less force than earlier. Seemed like she might be playing along, or at least not killing me yet to see what I meant. While she and I more lightly scrapped, Skinner walked up to Bestar holding his fake captives. They got within a few feet of him, and the Squid Man looked overly pleased to see two possibly dead children. That was the moment. I let a bunch of biological metal pool in my hands, then tried to duck around Kate to hurl it past her. But she was too fast, and obviously she didn't know the plan. She ducked under me and uppercut into my jaw. I fell back into the bars of the Hound Man's cage, and she leapt forward and pinned me again, but this time a little bit more eased up. "No, Kate, I need to help Anna face through the bars." I said it way too loud, and Kate pulled back, far too obviously. The Hound in the cage behind us snarled, "Hey, what are you two do? Bestar, something's up! Check those hostages!" Kate thrust her arm through the cage, grabbed him, and slammed his head into the bars, but he'd still gotten Bestar's attention. Bestar looked down at us angrily, then at Anna and Jake. He grabbed Jake's face and looked closely. Jake's eyes shot open and he bit right into Bestar's hand. Ooh. Bestar yelped out, and Anna leapt onto his back and held tight. I pushed past Kate and hurled a glob of my liquid metal onto the bars near them.
"Okay, now Skinner!"
Anna yelled just as the burly zombie man shoved her and Bestar towards the bars that I'd just coated over in my biological metal. Anna took a deep breath,
so the biological
admittedly
metal
I did too, and I couldn't help but audibly cheer as she and Bestar phased right through the bars and fell into the arena with me, and more importantly, with Kate.
The guards flipped out, but before they could do anything, Gooby came charging in, firing his ray gun every which way, from the shoulder of one of the dozen members of the Rave Crab gang. They ran in pumping Billy Joel's Only the Good Die Young, which felt a little bit off tone, but I was into it. The Crabs, Gooby, Skinner, and Jake kept the crowds busy and scrambling as Anna ran over and gave Kate a massive hug.
"I know you told us to go without you, but we had to come back. We couldn't just leave you in here."
Kate was
you
speechless,
had no choice
but
to
she
come
only
back,
hugged Anna
you know,
for another
they
brief
kinda forced
moment,
you.
then stepped past her towards Bestar, who was panicking for a way out. I knew Alexis and a bunch of members of my team wouldn't approve of me just letting her flat out execute this guy, but apparently she refused to leave this place till she had. Plus, you know, he was a terrible dude who kept Kate as a fighting slave for 13 years. Didn't really seem like my place to step in.
I made sure to keep an eye on Jake through the whole ordeal while he was fighting up above, but he was doing just fine. Skinner was protecting him from the really tough baddies, and he was just bouncing along to the music, flying over to any of the rave crabs that got hit too hard and healing them up. Meanwhile, Kate wasn't saying anything as she marched towards Bestar, but he'd become a real chatterbox.
"Caitlin, stay back. You owe me all you are. You're the most feared warrior in BackCells, and I made you that way." I could practically smell the rage coming off her, but she still said nothing. When she was a few feet from him, Bestar pulled a small jar from his back that looked like it had a bolt of lightning bouncing around in it. "Fine then. It will be hard to replace you, but I suppose you've had a good run anyhow."
"No!"
Anna said.
"That's lightning in a bottle. It'll give him super strength and speed. Kate, be careful!"
But Kate didn't stop. In fact, she sped up. She darted forward, and he punched her so hard that her shoulder popped visibly out of its socket. She winced, but spun through it, getting around Bestar's back, wrapping her still good arm around his neck, and snap. The next thing I knew, Bestar's head was literally on backwards. He collapsed to the ground. Kate spat on his corpse, then punched her own arm, snapping her shoulder right back into place.
Ow.
It was not the time or place for this thought, but right then and there, I was pretty sure I'd just fallen in love.
So So this is supposed to be Anna?
The next few minutes were a blur. Jake and the crew on the upper floor cleared out the crowd.
Supernova
We figured
Sterling.
out how to open the door to the arena, and we all reconvened in a weird hotel lobby-like clearing. I'd even grabbed that little lightning in a bottle thing Bestar had dropped, and just having it on me did make me feel like I was significantly stronger. The Rave Crab gang stayed at the arena. We promised they could have it and repurpose it for their raves if they helped. So our group now just consisted of Jake,
There you go.
Anna,
Whatever, you
Skinner,
made the deal.
Gooby, Kate, and myself. Anna and Jake caught Kate up on what had happened to them, and I was honestly all in on listening to the story a second time. When they finished, Kate just said, "Sounds like what you guys went through really sucked, huh?" Anna smiled and said,
Yeah, but everything that sucks is good for you, right?
"Yeah," Jake said. Plus,
That which
Sterling
doesn't
kind of
kill
managed
you
to make
is
it
going
fun.
to
Kate
die.
looked me in the eyes, and I almost felt like looking away. My heart thudded as my mind jumped from thinking about how pretty she was, back and forth with images of her beating the snot out of me in the arena. "Thank you," she said simply. I smiled, or I think I smiled, and said,
There can't be
"Oh
things that are
yeah,
pretty hot
it's,
about a woman who
it's
can
cool,
kick
no
your
problem.
ass."
The helping is what I do. Of course, we've still got a ways to go here, right? Got to get back to fight for your life and find the orb shard, if it's still there.
Orb.
That won't be necessary." We all whipped around to see a faint pink glow coming from the darkness as Dresden walked through into view, carrying 2 pieces of the multiversal orb. Without even thinking, my arms both
Orb.
lit up into flames. He couldn't have more than 1 piece, unless he'd taken another. "Where'd you get that? Where's Astra?" He got closer and said, "Anyone who enters my prison will remain here unless they manage to escape, or if I owe them a favor. When Astra brought your little rat friend, I allowed her to leave because we were completing a transaction for a favor I owed her, from granting me the first piece of the multiversal orb. Upon her departure, our arrangement was closed. So when she and your irksome friends returned 10 days ago to retrieve you, Sterling and Geel, I had no reason to hold back." I could feel my flames growing hotter, but before I could demand more answers, Kate stepped forward, shaking with fury. "You're real?" His face softened as he looked at Kate. "So you do remember me, Caitlin. I wasn't certain if you'd repressed the memory or not. Either way, congratulations on finally killing Bestar. You had more help than I'd intended, but I won't hold that against your progress." Jake leaned forward anxiously. "Sterling, that's Dresden, right? Kate, how do you know him?" Kate's lip quivered with rage. "The last memory I have before getting stuck in this hellhole is his face peering up from the floor in front of me. I thought I imagined Did you trap me in here?" "I did, and have looked forward for quite some time to watching you escape someday. But the more pressing matter currently is the deal I have to work out with Sterling here." He swirled the runes on his forearm, and we all fell through the floor into a completely pitch-black room. I couldn't see anything, or even hear anything for a moment, until the darkness around me cleared away, revealing my new friends on the ground, but more horrifying, Dresden still across from us, and lining the dark yellow amorphous walls behind him was Astra, Alexis, Mara, Benny, Vasilia, the whole Sharp Gang group, unconscious and trapped with their lower halves and arms morphed into the wall. After a brief moment of terror, though, I kind of just breathed a sigh of relief, because I could see all of their chests faintly moving. They were alive and breathing. And to be honest, I was pretty sure we'd been through worse than that. But Jake and Anna were looking terrified again. They needed someone to stay cool-headed, to show them that any situation is figure-outable. So I kept calm, even though I did kinda want to punch
kinda weird when
Dresden's
he was
head off,
adjusting the eye,
and
and
all
it was
the
like
while
going like,
started building up a marble-sized
weird.
ball
Made
of
it look kinda
condensed
weird.
metal and flames, while thinking the incantations Vasilia had recently taught me. I really hoped they were gonna work this time. I was suddenly that much
time?
more glad to have the lightning in the bottle on me, giving me an extra power boost. I tried to keep my voice steady as I said, "Well, I don't think this is the kind of spa day my friends are into, so what's this deal you're looking to make, Dresden?" Before he could answer, Kate ran at him, knuckles bared. He tapped his forearm runes and tendrils flew out from the walls around us, yanking her in next to Astra. I'll get back to correcting your life path soon, Caitlin. This escapade has thrown you somewhat off course, but Sterling has provided me with a very unexpected opportunity that I feel I must take advantage of. Perhaps even use it to reconsider where your path is headed. He turned back to me as he tapped the runes on one of the orb shards and opened a portal right into the Shark Tank vault. I am well within my rights to keep every single one of you here for the rest of your miserable lives, but I will grant you a deal. If you give me the last 2 shards of the multiversal orb, you and the wretches who came to save you may leave.
Not loving that deal for a bunch of reasons, Dresden, but most important of them is that doesn't account for my new BackCells team here. I ain't leaving without my new B team. Okay, that's
B-team?
a bad name, we'll work on that. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it is
also,
kinda
not
bad.
that I'm into this idea, but if you can get into our vault, why haven't you just taken the shards already?
I certainly could, but if there is one thing nobody has ever called Dresden Oakland in 6,000 years,
A
it's
thief.
a thief. I make deals, then abide by them, and this is
He's an
frankly
extortionist.
one of my most generous offers. So as such, I will give you 5 seconds to make your decision. Him saying that seemed to make both Jake and Anna wince, but I immediately stepped
Oh, yeah.
forward and said,
Just like that last
well, I
match.
guess I'm in luck then, cause it only takes me about 4 seconds to do this. Silver Nova Initium. I spun the flaming metal marble around and slammed it into the center of my forehead. A blinding light burst all around us as metal and flames swirled across my body and turned me into my new flamey chrome super form. Even though nobody else could see what was happening, I quickly turned to Jake and Anna and whispered, "Time for the Irish goodbye, guys, get on it." Then in a blink, I shot over to Dresden, grabbed his forearm, and coated it over in liquid metal so he couldn't use his Overseer runes. I yanked both orb shards from his hands,
cut his
stuck
arm
them
off.
onto the metal of my back, and shot a beam of metal at his feet to lock him to the floor before hovering away. But I moved back too soon. The runes slid up from his arm onto his forehead. Did not know he could do that. He
Yeah.
tapped them and a barrage of tendrils shot up from beneath me. They slammed into me hard, but my metal was holding up. Gooby suddenly darted out of nowhere and started shooting a bunch of rays that almost hit some of my friends when they missed. At one point it actually seemed like Gooby was aiming at Benny in the background, but for the most part the rays were hitting Dresden. Unfortunately, the blows just seemed to bounce off his flaky gray skin. A tentacle shot down at Gooby, and I flew in to block it. The shot hit me hard and slammed me to the ground. When I leapt up, Dresden was right in my face and grabbed one of my arms. I felt like he was rubbing sandpaper over my skin as he held tight and the gray flakiness of his own hand started to spread onto me. I ignored it and grabbed his arm, then slammed my head into his and used some of my
yeah.
liquid metal to lock his forehead against mine. Really wanted to keep his eyes focused on me. We both held with deadlocked grips, bouncing off walls for at least a couple
should've
minutes.
cut his arm
I
off.
couldn't feel my right arm anymore, and the flaking gray was spreading up to my neck. Really hoped Jake could heal that for me. I tried engulfing both our bodies in flames, but it didn't do anything to him. He leered into my eyes as my movements slowed from exhaustion of overusing Silver Nova. I didn't expect you to have an altered form, Engeal, but I'll admit, I've enjoyed getting a genuine fight. He released his grip from my arm, then grabbed the side of my face instead. However, I believe it's time for it to conclude. My eyes darted past him, and then I just chuckled and said, "Yeah, I think you might be right about that. But also, this wasn't so much a genuine fight as a genuine distraction." Silver Nova,
Look, a
cease!
distraction.
I fell backwards out of my coating of metal that Dresden still clung to, and though exhausted, I flamed up and shot myself to the portal that Dresden had left open, just as Anna was phasing the last of my friends out of the wall, and Skinner, Jake, and Kate were carrying them through to the vault in my dimension. When I was almost through, I turned back with a smirk, but noticed that Dresden wasn't even trying to stop us. He grabbed the 2 orb shards that I'd had to leave in my deteriorating metal and just seemed to let us go. That still kinda concerns me. As I got to the portal, Jake stuck his head back through and held out his middle finger to Dresden, yelling, "Irish goodbye, freak!" I laughed and tackled Jake
Yeah,
through
I'm
the
sure
gate.
he said freak.
Him
Yeah, I'm
saying
sure.
something to Dresden kinda made it not an Irish goodbye anymore. Plus, giving him the finger made it like, I don't know, an American goodbye maybe?
Kind of,
But
yeah.
point is, we were out. I tapped on one of the shards in the vault and closed the portal. I was pretty sure there was something I was missing in the fact that Dresden had just let us go, plus leaving him 2 of the shards definitely was not a good move, but I guess he might not have let us escape if we didn't. It also honestly kind of worried me that I'd barely held my own against him despite being full Silver Nova and having the lightning in the bottle to give me an extra power boost. How tough was this guy? And
Pretty tough.
when were we gonna have to fight him again after what we'd just done?
I buried all my concerns for the moment, though. This whole group needed that win. Kate seemed conflicted about what had just happened, but I could tell she was enjoying deeply breathing in air that
she's
didn't
gonna wanna
stink
kill him
of
later.
must and mold
That'll
like
come
BackCells.
around to it later.
As Jake and Anna cheered and bounced around, hugging each other, and Skinner and Kate and even Gooby, some of my unconscious friends started to come too. Astra sat up and darted her eyes around. Where? Sterling? How did you... We came to get you as soon as we knew you were gone, but... I knelt down and gave her a hug. Don't worry, Astra. We're all safe. I glanced over at my new group of friends. The B team really had our back. Benny sat up next.
Jeez, I had some wacky dreams there, bud. How long was I out for? Why is the freaking Gophasia back?
The goat. The end.
And there we have the finale of the BackCells Prison Saga. But it's far from the ending of the story for a lot of these characters. This series
Interesting.
provided a perfect opportunity for me to introduce and start fleshing out so many characters that I've been wanting to work more into Multiverse Tales, the original stories on this channel, and I am very excited for where they're all gonna go next. This actually helped me set up a lot of things that will play into the Multiverse War story arc that I plan on doing eventually. Though it is probably
Nice.
still a couple years away at this point because there's a lot of other shoes I need to drop in the Multiverse Tales series before we get to that. Thank you once again so much to everyone who gave so
my
many
God, this guy needs
encouraging
to have a
comments
comic
on
series.
this series. It made it that much more fun for me to keep making it, and I'm very excited to show you all what comes next for Jake, Anna, Dresden, Sterling, Fear herself, and I guess Skinner, who I'd planned on killing off, and I just kind of forgot to do that, so he's there too, I guess.
There you go.
But besides that, that's all for today, except
There
of
you
course
go.
for ending this video on some
That's
kind of
kind of
positive or
interesting.
inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is a nice, simple one, because this has been a very long episode. And that's that greatness is common people doing uncommon things. I hope that's inspiring to someone out there. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday. Goodbye.
That's less inspiring and more so just a fact of life, really. Anyway, so that is interesting. I really went overboard on this one, guys, because I just wanted to see this whole thing. This was the final episode for this, huh? That's pretty badass. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I did. Oh my God, this guy deserves, with this kind of writing, this guy deserves to have a comic series. He deserves it. Oh man, there's got to be some way to get this to him. Anyway. You guys know the drill. Like this video, subscribe, definitely click on the link to the original, get down to Popcross Studios, like the original, and sub to him. And I will see you guys next time. Tune in every day for new content. Bye-bye.